Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I would like to welcome you to the Sunday Book Review. The Sunday Book Review is the series where I discuss books which impact the compliance practitioner, the legal professional, and the business professional. I hope you will enjoy this episode. The Sunday Book Review is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. Welcome to the Sunday Book Review for June 25, 2023, the Josephine Tey edition. Today we take up 4 mysteries by a little-remembered English mystery writer, Josephine Tey, who we lost to cancer in 1952. We begin with The Franchise Affair, probably her finest work, and it's a very interesting story of 2 women who kidnap a third woman and basically put her into slavery as their maid. It is an interesting book which really delves into being an outsider and what it's like to not just be the victim of a crime, but the victim's family and then the family of the perpetrator. It is, as I said, her most famous, arguably her finest book, and really sets apart Tey as a mystery writer. Next up is Kif, which is her first story. And this came out in 1929. And it's the story of a boy who returns from World War I to a world that no longer has a place for him, and really presages, I think, many of the topics that you see in the Franchise Affair. Also, or rather up next, The Daughter of Time. And this is the subject of the tarnished reputation of a king, where Tey puts her detective, Adam Grant, in a hospital bed where he investigates the murder of the princes in the Tower, inspired simply by a portrait of Richard III, which bears no resemblance to the villain in history and that of Shakespeare. Tey here creates an ultimate armchair detective, even more than Nero Wolfe, and expands on the boundaries of detective fiction. It is a novelist rather than a professional historian looking back on a historical event, and I think that this really makes the book stand out in a way that gives you a sense of the history of the time and place. Indeed, I read this in a history class, so that shows you just how powerful this book is. To Love and Be Wise is, as the title suggests, a book about love. This is arguably one of her classiest books, an outing for Inspector Grant with a stunning sleight of hand, which really showcases the originality, ingenuity, and daring that have made Tey enduringly popular and given her an influence on crime fiction vastly out of proportion to her own output. Indeed, Adam Dalgliesh, Inspector Wexford, and many others, sensitive but never sentimental, are the direct outgrowths, or direct descendants, I should say, of Adam Grant. If you haven't read Josephine Tey's book, any of her books, I would suggest you do so. Because of my love of history, I would suggest you start with The Daughter of Time, because of his investigation into the murder of the 2 princes in the Tower. I wouldn't say it's rollicking good fun, but it's rollicking good history. I hope you'll check out Josephine Tey and help remember her in this year. I'd like to tell you about the latest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network. It's 2 Gurus Talk Compliance, where, with my friend and colleague Christy Grant Hart, we take a look at some of the top compliance commentary around. It's a long-form, up to 1-hour podcast, but if you're interested in compliance, if you're interested in Christy Grant Hart and myself talking about compliance, this would be a great podcast for you to check in on. It premiered on March 10th on the Compliance Podcast Network. I know you'll enjoy this latest offering. Additionally, we have Data-Driven Compliance, which is a podcast where I look at the use of data in compliance programs. This is perhaps the most cutting-edge podcast I have going right now. And if you're interested in how data can be used, how to structure a data analytics program, what tools are available out there for you, and how compliance practitioners are using data, this is certainly the podcast for you. So check out Data-Driven Compliance, all on the Compliance Podcast Network. The Sunday Book Review is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.